In the story, when Yosef is going through some of the troubles that he's going through, he was sold as a slave, and now he's stuck as a slave in the house of Potiphar. The wife of Potiphar sets her eyes on Yosef. Again, we're taught that he was extremely handsome, and beyond just physical beauty, he had a spiritual beauty, and he was smart and powerful and successful. And so basically, she set her eyes on him in a relentless way. She did not stop. The Midrash tells us that she would, day after day, she was obsessed beyond. There was a movie that came out back when I maybe still had time to see movies, and still felt that it was okay to see movies and wasn't such a waste of time. But there was a movie where this famous writer was in a car crash, and he almost died, and this nice woman saved him, and she realized that he was this famous writer. So, but after she saved him and nurtured him back to life, so then she wanted to keep him. This crazy woman. It was this. She did a good role. Actually, she's played this sick woman that at the end, after she saved his life, then chained him to the bed and didn't want to let him leave. And if she caught him moving around, it was this crazy movie. So this is nothing compared to what Potiphar's wife did to Yosef. She relentlessly harassed him and tried to pressure him, force him, seduce, everything you could think of. She's trying to get him to concede, to agree to be with her. Now, after she sees her chance, everyone is away. Everyone leaves her home area to go for this holiday type of celebration. So it's just her and Yosef alone. Seemingly almost nobody else was there. And this is her chance. And so she actually tries to force herself on Yosef. Yosef, says, I can't do this. And he runs away, but somehow she ended up grabbing hold of his shirt. And now he realizes that she's in trouble. So she says, look what this man did. It's just, she even, actually, I don't even think she screamed, but she says to people that come afterwards to see what happened, that she screamed out and he ran away and left me with the shirt. Look what he tried to do. This Hebrew slave, he came to make a mockery of us, to try to take advantage of me. Her husband got very upset, according to the Psukim, but the truth is her husband knew very well that Joseph, the righteous Joseph that had the words of Hashem and Hashem's presence in front of him all the time, would never do such a thing. He only put him in jail in order to save his own reputation and his own pride. He knew that he was putting an innocent man in jail, but he did it anyway. So now Yosef is in jail. You couldn't get any worse. In those days, the jail was pretty bad. I mean, today you got people want to go to jail. It's like a 5-star hotel for some people. But in those days, jail was literally a pit in the earth. They were literally in a cave. Jail. And now, so in jail, the Torah tells us, and throughout Joseph's story, that Hashem had a special relationship with Yosef. And Hashem endowed Yosef with chen, with grace, and with chesed. Chesed normally means kindness, but in the context of the verse that we're going to quote now, chesed means liked. He was liked, and he found favor in everyone's eyes. Like the saying when we talk about a bride who's a kala chasida. She's a pleasant, and everyone is pleased, and on some level she finds chen in the eyes of the people, and Hashem is gracing her with this special chen, like with also the story of Esther, and so that's what's going on over here. So Yosef is privileged for this unique relationship with Hashem and this unique blessing, and the pasuk reads, "Vayihi Hashem et Yosef, vayet elav chased." God was with Yosef. Et over here, et is another way of saying with. There are aim with an ayin and et are two words to say with. So the Torah is telling us that Hashem was with Yosef, and he was endowed with this chesed, which means that he was able to find favor in the eyes of everyone who met him, and he was this pleasant person, and he seemed to be able to combine people together in a way of positivity. And everywhere he went, he had this blessing of success. He was an ish matzliach. He had this blessing of success, and everywhere he went, he was like a cancer. Unfortunately, we know about a cancer. It wherever it goes, it destroys. He was like the opposite of this cancer. He was this spiritual, ability that he had to bring success and pleasantness everywhere he was. You talk about when we think of a holy person, a spiritual person, so he had all that power, holiness and spirituality just coming through him, and he was able to just bring peace wherever he was, and this unbelievable level of success. He was smart, and he was pleasant, and so that's his relationship. As soon as he became the slave in charge of Potiphar's house, Potiphar quickly realized that he was just this man that was just built for absolute success, and he put him in charge of everything in the house. He became the manager, the CEO of everything that Potiphar owned. Okay. Then when he was put in jail, so again, he was put in charge of everything in that jail, and there was a special jail for the prisoners, of people that worked for the king. So everywhere he went, he was this absolute success story. It continues, and then we'll get to the actual deeper lesson here. It continues because once he was freed from jail, immediately he becomes the viceroy of Egypt, meaning he becomes the real ruling power, there's executive, CEO, whatever. He became the manager of Egypt, king of Egypt, in a sense, that ran things, the day-to-day things, the details. He was running Egypt. He was the ruling power of Egypt. Power was just considered the king that sat on the throne, which placed him above Yosef. But other than that, Yosef was really running things in Egypt. And he found ultimate success as well as the viceroy of Egypt, because he was able to turn with his of course, his divine assistance. Hashem was helping him, but through him, meaning through his intellect and through his ability to work with everyone, he was able to build Egypt into the most powerful empire that perhaps may have ever lived, because in this point in time, Egypt ruled the world. And Yosef, if you want to talk about billionaires, trillionaires, Yosef was the first gazillionaire, whatever you call it. He was the first person that really was the most powerful person perhaps that ever lived, in his ability to control the world during this time of famine. All the countries and all the people became subservient to Yosef, and Mitzrayim needing their help. And he, of course, was the brains and the power behind the success of Mitzrayim. Okay, so that's Yosef. Now let's appreciate a little bit more about what was the true power behind Yosef. Why? Because Yosef has, and we're going to discuss today, several names that Yosef had. One of the names that Yosef had, clearly we see in our story, they keep calling him something, not such a beautiful praise of Yosef. What do they keep calling Yosef in the story? So from this perspective of Egypt, he was called an Eved, a slave, a Hebrew, which was also an insult, and a Na'ah, a kid, a child, an adolescent, which was also an insult. So from the perspective of Egypt, nobody wanted to give Yosef the true praise and credit that he deserved. But the main focus is the term Eved. In the eyes of Mitzrayim, as successful as Yosef ever became, he was simply an Eved. An Eved can work hard and build things and accomplish things. None of it's his. It all belongs to his owner. And from perspective, it's a very important idea for us to appreciate and understand that Yosef's success in Mitzrayim did not change his status. He was simply an Eved that did a lot of work for his masters, and everything belonged to Mitzrayim. Nothing was Yosef's. So from one perspective, he was just an Eved. He had nothing. Another term that we give Yosef is Yosef HaTzadik, Yosef the righteous. He's the only biblical figure that is given this special praise of being called Yosef HaTzadik, the righteous. And we have to appreciate what's behind this. So it's like this dual story. The double story of Yosef is, on the one hand, he was just this slave, and they usurped him as much as they could. But in essence, he was really an Eved of Hashem, and therefore he was Yosef the righteous. And everything he did was rooted in holiness, rooted in purity, and it was all with this absolute connection, devekut in Hebrew, with Hashem. He was davuk with Hashem and the presence of Hashem, the Shekhinah, the indwelling of Hashem that dwells within us in our world, here in our physical world. And this never parted from him. And this level of connection with Hashem is what was the true source to his success, because he was a vessel and a vehicle to reveal and to cause to be manifest the ultimate divine will in every detail of his life. And so you want to talk about how God permeates the world? Through Yosef, God was in Mitzrayim with Yosef and through Yosef. Okay, so now here's a bit of a deep appreciation and also how it's going to connect back to us. Okay. So the Ben Ish Chai explains, based on Kabbalah, which is really taught in many sources today, Nefesh HaChaim, everyone speaks about these type of things. that our soul is really the essence of who and what we really are. We are really a soul that is garbed in a body. The body is like our clothing. The same way we put on a nice suit, we need clothing, we need shoes. The Gemara even says, Chazal say that we should sell everything we have to have shoes, because without shoes we can't go anywhere. It's funny, Hashem made us so strong that we can conquer the world, but our feet are so delicate that we can't even walk on the ground without shoes. And so we need shoes and we need clothing. Now, a beautiful idea, Al-Pi Kabbalah, it talks about our soul. So our soul has many levels. The lowest level of our soul is enclosed within our body, and the body is also called a shoe. On some level, our body is called a shoe for our soul. The same way we need shoes to come into this world and to do things, to go places, to get things done, our soul needs a body to come into this world and be able to do things, to get things done. Without the body, the shoe, so to speak, of our body, our soul can't do nothing either. Okay, so these levels of our soul, there are 5 levels to our soul. Many cases we talk about only 4 or 3 because the higher levels are very, very sublime, very, very lofty, and we don't have access to them usually, or in all cases. And so they are, just for the terminology, nefesh is the lowest level of our soul. It is the part of our soul that is the most connected to our body, and it is the level of our vitality, meaning the vitality that our body has to be animated and to be functioning is coming from the level of nefesh. The next level above nefesh is ruach. Ruach in spirit, the breath. When God blew into the body, blew into Adam, the breath of life. That's the breath of life is the level of ruach. Then there's the level of neshama, which is the general term we give to our entire soul in all of its parts. We generally, in a more just a general way, call it soul, but that level of soul has a specific level. It's the 3rd level called neshama. There's a 4th level, it's called chaya, which means life, vitality. And the highest level is called yichida, uniqueness, oneness, which is the highest level, which we don't always have access to. And in the times of Mashiach, that level will be revealed in its fullest sense. So with everything we said, we could appreciate. There are 5 levels to the soul, 4 that we talk about more, 3 that we talk about even more. And the most connected to our physical body and activity is the nefesh. That is why there's something unique about the burial place of a Jewish person that has this special, unique, holy neshama with all of these levels. The nefesh, we are taught, is most connected to our body, and after a person leaves this world, passes away, so the nefesh is connected with the place that he's buried. Now, with regular people, we don't always have that strong connection. But with tzaddikim, since their body and soul unified in such a powerful way to do the will of God, consistently and constantly, so the nefesh of a tzaddik is found by the kever, and there's a special power there. That's why we are allowed, and we see that it's actually a Jewish practice, to go to the kever of a righteous person, the burial place of a righteous person, and pray. Pray in the merit of the tzaddik, not pray to the tzaddik, chas v'sholom, but pray in the merit of the tzaddik, to Hashem, that we should be helped. We should have blessing in the merit of the tzaddik. Now we can ask a big question: why do I have to go there for this prayer? I can pray anywhere to Hashem, but we see there's a special power and connection between the burial place of the righteous person and tapping into his merit, specifically at his burial place. Unbelievable Gemara that is in the Ein Yaakov. It talks about Moshe Rabbeinu and when he passed away. So the Gemara asks, why was the grave, the burial place of Moshe Rabbeinu, hidden from mankind? Why is it that we couldn't know where Moshe was buried? Imagine if we knew where Moshe was buried. We know where Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai is buried, and 1 million people go there almost on Lag BaOmer, and millions and millions, maybe 5 million people around the world in some way participate in the special Lag BaOmer celebration in honor of according to some, the passing of Rabbi Shimon Bar Yochai. We go to the grave of Rabbi Shimon, we go to the grave of the Arizal. Imagine if we could go to the grave of Moshe Rabbeinu and pray. How powerful would that be? Any takers? So this teaching from our sages really reveals to us how powerful it would be and why we can't have that power. Okay, so listen to this. The Gemara says that why was the grave of Moshe Rabbeinu hidden from us? Because God knows the future. It was revealed and known before God that one day the Jews would unfortunately have brought about the destruction of their Beis Hamikdash because of their sins. which again is not only punishment, it's part of Hashem working with us and bringing us ultimately the third Beit HaMikdash. But we would have to go through the Chorban of the Beit HaMikdash, the destruction of our Beit HaMikdash. What would we do in such a situation when we find out from the Navi that Hashem is going to destroy our Beit HaMikdash? Where would we run, if we could? To the most powerful place in the world to pray. To the burial place of Moshe Rabbeinu, where his body is connected to his nefesh, which is connected to his neshama, which was like an atomic, whatever, a nuclear bomb to pray for the benefit of the Jewish people. We would run to the grave site of Moshe Rabbeinu and pray there and say, Moshe, go and stand before Hashem and stop this. And what would Moshe do? He would go and stand before Hashem and pray and stop the Chorban. That's what the Chazal tell us. He would stop it because nothing could stop the prayers of Moshe Rabbeinu. In order for Hashem to keep Moshe Rabbeinu out of Israel, he didn't reject his prayer. He shut down heaven. According to the Chazal, he basically closed heaven and said, heaven's closed today. Prayers don't work today. Otherwise, Moshe Rabbeinu's prayer was unstoppable. Unbelievable. And so that's what we're taught. That had we have known where Moshe Rabbeinu's kever was, where his gravesite was, we would have gone there and prayed, and there would have been no Chorban, no destruction of the Beit HaMikdash. That's how powerful that particular place was. So, knowing this, Hashem said, I'll hide his grave site from everybody. Therefore, this won't happen. Okay, but we see an unbelievable power of the neshama of a righteous person, of the burial place of a righteous person. And now we can begin to appreciate. This is all when the tzaddik is no longer alive in this world. This is when there's a separation on some level between his body and soul. When his soul is in heaven and his body is buried here. Imagine the power of the tzaddik, of Yosef HaTzaddik, of Moshe Rabbeinu, of the Gedolei Yisrael that we have even today with us. When their soul and body are together, alive, doing mitzvot. So that's Yosef HaTzaddik in Mitzrayim. Yosef HaTzaddik had this neshama, this powerful soul of his, on all those levels, nefesh, ruach, neshama, and chaya, and yechidah. He had all the levels of his neshama attached to Hashem and kedusha, and therefore he became this powerhouse. Everywhere he went with the blessing of Hashem and the power of Hashem, and he transformed all of the darkness and all of the destruction in Mitzrayim, wherever he went, to light, to goodness. That was V'Hashem et Yosef. Hashem was with Yosef, Aleph to Taf means from A to Z. Hashem was with him from A to Z. And he had this absolute ability to just bring about the Ratzon of Hashem through him and just bring success and blessing in everything he touched. So that's Yosef. That's Yosef's story. How does it relate to us? So this is going beyond the Ben Ish Chai. That's what the Ben Ish Chai starts us with. Going beyond the Ben Ish Chai, we're going to now connect this with a beautiful prayer in Shemona Esrei, the second bracha of Shemona Esrei, and give us a nice insight in how we can use this to understand what we can do, how we can be Yosef, how we can be like Yosef, how we can have this V'Hashem et Yosef, that Hashem was with Yosef, that he should be with us also, as much as we're able to bring him with us, through us. And here's the idea. In the blessing of Tchiyat HaMetim, of Mechaya Metim, in the blessing of that God gives life to the dead, we mentioned many times that Hashem is Mechaya Metim, Mechaya Metim, Mechaya Metim. Different amount of times. And it all corresponds, one way to explain it, is the different levels of our neshama. The three that we all have more common, but then there's 5. And so the idea is like this. We have 5 levels of our neshama. These 5 levels of our neshama correspond to the 4 letters of God's name and the dot on top of the yud, which is this highest level. So our soul in its levels corresponds to Hashem's name, and it corresponds to the 4 and 5 worlds that exist, and it corresponds to the 4 and 5 activities that are the expressions of our soul, how our soul is alive in this world through our body. And these 4 and 5 expressions are action, speech, intention, intellect, chachma, wisdom, and ratzon, will. Okay, what are we? What are we? If I'm alive today in this world, what am I? What does it mean that I'm alive? How do I express that life in this world? It's through these 5 expressions of my soul. Is action, speech, my intention that are behind my action and my speech, and my wisdom, the wisdom that is ultimately even higher than that, that is governing everything I decide to do in this world. And the highest level, an all-encompassing level, is my will. My will is all-encompassing. My will doesn't listen in one limb, in one place. All the other 4 levels are limited. Will is all-encompassing. The will is the underlying driving factor within all of us is our ultimate will, what drives us everywhere we go. That's our will. Now, so if I take these 5 levels of my own reality and my own existence in this world, and I use them to connect with Hashem and to do the will of Hashem, so then now my existence becomes one on some level with Hashem's existence, which is the true reality and the essence of life. So in the blessing of Mechaya Mesim, that Hashem gives life to the dead, it's like this. If I choose to disconnect from Hashem and do what I want for my own selfish reasons and motives, then I'm disconnected from Hashem. Meaning if I use my action, my speech, my thoughts, my intentions, and my will to do what I want for my sake, and going so far as to go against Hashem, if I use the life Hashem gives me to do sins, and certainly in a more subtle way, not to do His mitzvot, so I'm not connected to Hashem, and therefore I'm not really alive. What's the opposite of life? Death. But when I connect to Hashem with my thought, speech, action, intention, and will, then I reverse that state of non-life to a state of life. And that's the deeper appreciation of Mechayim Mesim, and how it applies to me in my daily life is this, that every day I have an opportunity to either, unfortunately, be considered among the dead when I don't connect with Hashem, and even more so when I do sins with my body and my soul. And when I do the opposite, when I do mitzvot and I connect with Hashem, then I transform my existence from being an existence that is tantamount to not being alive to being alive. So the deep appreciation of Mechayim Mesim is through my activity in fulfilling Hashem's will in the world on these 5 levels. And that's how I can be like Yosef was in Mitzrayim. Because we are today in Mitzrayim. We are in Egypt. We are in an exile where godliness is hidden. The presence of Hashem and the control of Hashem is hidden from us. Our job in this world is to bring Hashem into the world through us, to connect with Hashem the way Yosef did, and turn our life experience into a blessed, successful life experience. But success in what sense? We're not trying to become the next billionaire, trillionaire. In success in being an Eved Hashem. And then all of our success is His success. And all of our success is His. If we manage to realize that we need to be an Eved Hashem and come into the world to do Ratzon Hashem, then Hashem will take care to make sure we have what we need and what He understands is best for us. And then we have that life of Yosef, that blessed life of Yosef. Hashem will give us the power we need and the blessing we need, the money we need, the serenity we need. He'll give us everything we need once we see that everything around us are tools provided for us by God to fulfill our purpose and take our part in God's divine plan. That's the story of Yosef.